Hello, Seward. I'm going to call the April 15, 2025 regular meeting of the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly to order because we now have 6:01. My mic is on. Is this better? Okay, thank you. Hello, Seward. Thank you for inviting us. I'd like to call the April 15, 2025 regular meeting of the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly to order. This meeting is also being conducted through the Zoom meeting platform and can be heard on KDLL FM 91.9, KBBI AM 890, and KIVH FM 91.7. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We now will receive an invocation offered by Central Emergency Services Chaplain Frank Aliotto, who is attending via Zoom. You may either remain standing or be seated. No one is required to participate.
Can you hear me okay?
We hear you clearly.
All right. Gracious and loving God, as we gather in this meaningful week, a time when many pause to reflect on sacrifice, renewal, and hope, we come with an open heart and mind. In the quiet of this moment, we ask for wisdom and presence. You're a God who cares deeply about justice, compassion, and truth. Help us to be people who live these values, not just in what we say, but in how we treat one another, how we lead, and how we serve. May our actions reflect fairness, kindness, and integrity. In this time of reflection, challenge us to see where we can do better. Help us speak up for those who go unheard, to stand strong for what is right, and to live with purpose that uplifts others. Make us mindful of our responsibilities and courageous in our choices. As we walk through this week, filled with meaning and tradition, remind us of what truly matters: love in action, justice in motion, and humility in leadership. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Aliotto. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
President Ribbons.
Here.
Vice President Cooper. Here. Mr. Baisden.
Here.
Mr. Cox.
Here.
Mr. Dunn.
Here.
Miss Eklund.
Here.
Miss Morton.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Tunseth.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are going to start off with committee reports, which are rapidly going to seed like the Ryan Tunseth show. So, Assemblymember Tunseth, why don't you start off with the committee of the whole?
Thank you, President Ribbons. We started off our meetings today at 2 o'clock. The first one was the committee of the whole meeting. And this is kind of the start of our budget cycle process. And so we hear updates on various budget items, service area budgets, et cetera. And so today during the committee of the whole, we had presentations on the Bear Creek Fire Service Area, the Bear Creek Flood Service Area, and the Eastern Highway Service Area. Those were reports that were given to us by Mr. Bracken, Chief Bracken. Appreciate you being here to deliver the presentations. And if you'll give me just one moment, Nick Chapman, I'm sorry, I was drawing a blank on Nick's name, but he presented also on the Bear Creek Flood Service Area and did a great job. So that concludes my report for the committee of the whole, President Ribbons.
Thank you, Chair Tunseth. And now, if you don't mind, please give us the Finance Committee report.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Ribbons. The Finance Committee met at 3 o'clock today. We concluded around 3:30 p.m. There were just a couple things on our agenda. There were 2 ordinances on the agenda for public hearings, and then 1 item of unfinished business, and then 2 items of new business, ordinances for introduction. The first two public hearings, the first one was ordinance 2024-19-34. This is accepting and appropriating congressionally directed spending grant funds from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources, and Service Administration for upgrading the mechanical and power plant at South Peninsula Hospital. Mr. Hedges with the borough was here and gave us kind of a brief update about that project as well, but it's really the relocation of the main mechanical and power plants for the hospital in Homer, the South Peninsula Hospital, something that they've been working on for a long time. Appreciate those updates, John. The second was ordinance 2025-06. This is providing an exception to Borough Code to accept the fiscal year 26 late filed senior citizen grant applications for the senior citizen grant program. This was brought to us by the mayor. Essentially, this was just extending the deadline for senior citizens to be able to get their applications in. There were a few people that missed those deadlines, and we didn't want to harm a senior citizens or the seniors that are, served by that senior citizen program from making it in because they were late. There were various reasons they were late, more than just one senior citizen center. And so senior center, thank you. So we extended that. That's what ordinance 2025-06 was. A couple of items under unfinished postponed. This was resolution 2025-017. This is requesting the state legislature provide municipalities authority to enact a cap on real property tax assessment increases. This was brought to us by the mayor. And essentially what this is asking is that in years where you have like tremendous property increases, that the state law would afford us the ability to decide if we wanted to put a cap to that. And right now, we don't currently have that ability. It has to be taxed at true and fair value. And so that we're asking that the state would give us that flexibility or opportunity to entertain something like that. So if there were years where you had really high fluctuations in property tax, that it could be sort of leveled out over time. That's resolution 2025-017. There were two items of new business. The first is just ordinance 2025-19-35. This is appropriating funds for the Central Peninsula Landfill Leachate Infrastructure Improvements Project. And this is a really, really large project to handle leachate at the landfill, which is a really big issue. And the request for an additional $1 million under this particular ordinance 2025-19-35 is to finish the project and to finish all of the SCADA build outs, which is the control system for the actual module. This money would be taken out of the general fund. We heard an update today in our fund balance that we had roughly $44 million in the fund balance. This would bring it down to roughly $43,900,000, so $1 million off of that. Appreciate Ms. Harbaugh bringing that information available to us. And then the last resolution that we had today was resolution 2025-19, amending resolution 2025-037 to extend the last meeting and final report deadline of the tourism industry working group. This really is exactly like it says. It's just extending a deadline for the tourism industry working group so that they have a little more time to complete their recommendations. It sounded like they were close, but not totally complete yet with recommendations. And so this just extends the amount of time that they have to make that available to the assembly. We concluded at 3:36 p.m. and that concludes my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Tunseth. Our next committee meeting was Policies and Procedures, brought to us by Chair Cox. Chair Cox?
Thank you. Yes, we started Policies and Procedures Committee at 3:36. It lasted for about 10 minutes. The mayor's report is first on our agenda. He did say that he would talk about that this evening, and so we did not talk to that this afternoon. We had new business. We had ordinances for introduction. There's ordinance 2025-07, amending KPB 4.10.100, relating to the use of public funds on ballot propositions to mirror state law. This was brought to us by myself. The hearing will be on May 20th, 2025. What this will do is change our code, just as it says, to mirror that of the state, so that when things come up where we do put public funds towards a ballot proposition, that the ordinance does not say and have to require an exception. It would just be part of our code to then still have to do an ordinance and still approve those funds. It would just not be exception to code anymore. The last item is under other. It's KPB 6823, confirming an appointment to the Planning Commission. The applicant is Karina England. It is the seat is for the city of Seward, and the term expires July 31st, 2026. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chair Cox. And then we concluded with the Legislative Committee, and since Chair Dunn was not present, it was the presiding officer was Vice Chair Tunseth. Mr. Tunseth.
Thank you, President Ribbons. The Legislative Committee met at 3:47 p.m. today, and we adjourned at 3:51. There was just one item under new business. This was a resolution that was brought to us by Assembly Members Morton and Dunn. Resolution 2025-18 is urging the U.S. Congress and the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to address outages of national data buoy center stations. We had heard at our previous meeting from Prince William Sound RCAC member about this these outages and the need to have this corrected. We had also heard that our request is similar to a request that the state legislature has made, requesting the same thing. So that's what this resolution 2025-018 is concerning. That concludes the Legislative Committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Tunseth. Vice President Cooper.
I move to approve the agenda and the consent agenda and ask unanimous.
Are there any amendments to the agenda and the consent agenda? Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance 2024-1934 was updated to include the advisory board recommendations pursuant to KPB 2240-050F. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any other amendments to the agenda and the consent agenda? Assemblymember Tunseth.
Thank you, President Ribbons. I would like to move ordinance 2024-19-34 to the agenda and consent agenda. This is accepting and appropriating congressionally directed spending grant funds from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resource and Services Administration for upgrading the mechanical and power plant at South Peninsula Hospital. And I would request unanimous.
Unanimous has been requested. Are there any objections? Seeing none, it is added. Do you have anything else?
I do. Thank you, President Ribbons. I would move to add to the agenda and consent agenda ordinance 2025-06, providing an exception to Borough Code to accept the fiscal year 26 late filed senior citizen grant applications for the senior citizen program. And I would request unanimous.
Unanimous has been requested. Are there any objections? Hearing and seeing none, it is added. Do you have anything else?
I do have one more, Mr. President. I would add to the agenda Resolution 2025-19, amending Resolution 2025-37 to extend the last meeting and final report deadline of the Tourism Industry Working Group, and request unanimous.
Unanimous has been requested. Are there any objections? One moment. I'm sorry, there's a bit of confusion here. Were you referring to the buoy resolution?
I may have went out of order again because this is the order that I'm looking at from our Finance Committee meeting. But no, I was just at this point looking to add to the regular agenda Resolution 2025-19.
Got it. Copied. Okay, so we're good on that one. Okay, it is added to the agenda. Is there anything else, Assemblymember Tunseth?
One more. I would like to add to the agenda and consent agenda. Sorry, I need to go to the. Yeah, that one may already actually be on there. Do I just ask for some clarification, Madam Clerk? Do I need to add to the agenda and consent agenda the resolution for the buoys, which was 25-018, or is that one already on there?
Through the president, Mr. Tunseth, that item is on the agenda and on consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. That concludes my additions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Assemblymember Tunseth. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, in a moment, the clerk will read the titles of the items on the consent agenda. After she reads them, you will have the opportunity to testify about them. All items that stay on the consent agenda will be approved or set for public hearing, whichever is the case, when the assembly approves the agenda and the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the consent agenda.
April 1st, 2025 regular assembly meeting minutes. KPB 6811, a resolution commending the Seward High School football team, 2024 Alaska 9-man state champion, sponsored by Ms. Eklund. KPB 6812, a resolution commending the Seward High School girls cross-country running team, 2024 Alaska Division II state champions, sponsored by Ms. Eklund. KPB 6813, a resolution commending the Seward High School girls basketball team, the 2025 Alaska Class 2A state champions, sponsored by Ms. Eklund. KPB 6814, a resolution commending the Seward High School girls cheerleaders, 2025 Alaska's State Division II academic award winners and competition runner-ups, sponsored by Ms. Eklund. KPB 6822, a resolution commending the Seward High School 2025 Alaska Division II State Wrestling Champions, sponsored by Ms. Eklund. Ordinance 2024-1934, accepting and appropriating congressionally directed spending grant funds from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration for the upgrading of mechanical and power plant at South Peninsula Hospital, sponsored by the mayor. Ordinance 2025-06, providing an exception to Borough Code to accept the FY26 late-filed senior citizen grant applications for the Senior Citizen Program, sponsored by the mayor. Resolution 2025-018, urging the U.S. Congress and the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to address outages of National Data Buoy Center stations, sponsored by Ms. Morton, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Tunseth, Mr. Johnson, Ms. Eklund, and Mr. Cox. Ordinance 2025-1935, appropriating funds for the Central Peninsula Landfill Leachate Infrastructure Improvement Project, sponsored by the mayor, hearing on May 6th. Ordinance 2025-07, amending KPB 410-100, relating to the use of public funds on ballot propositions to mirror state law, sponsored by Mr. Cox, hearing on May 20th. KPB 6823, confirming an appointment to the Planning Commission. Karina England, City of Seward seat, term to expire 7/31/2026. That is the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now you have the opportunity to provide public testimony on any items that are on the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up?
Not for consent items.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak on any of the items that the clerk just read that are on the consent agenda? Madam Clerk, is there anyone online who would like to speak?
No, sir, I do not see anyone.
Thank you. Vice President Cooper.
I request unanimous approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
Unanimous has been requested. Are there any objections? Hearing and seeing none, we have an agenda and a consent agenda. Okay, now we're moving from the Tunseth show to the Cindy Eklund show. Assemblymember Eklund, KPB 6811.
Thank you, President Ribbons. Jody, could you tell the football players and the football coaches if there's any out there to come on in while I read this? Tyler. This is a Kenai Peninsula Borough commending resolution, a resolution commending the Seward High School football team 2024 Alaska 9-man state champions. Whereas the Seward High School football team won the 2024 9-man football state championship, and whereas the Seward Seahawks completed their second undefeated season by beating rival Nikiski, sorry, President Ribbons, Nikiski High School to win the school's second state title and the second 9-man state final in Alaska's history. And whereas led by an explosive physical running attack, the game was never in question, with Seward ultimately winning by a score of 36-6. And whereas it was a hard-fought game and both teams represented the Kenai Peninsula community with class and great sportsmanship. And whereas Seward's football team was comprised of 19 student athletes, and occasionally this season, the team entered games with only 12 players available. And whereas their undefeated season is a testament to the perseverance and commitment of the players, Ronan Bickling, Noah Bird, Martin Fink, Hunter Forsey Kurtz, Grayson Jack Gardner, Brett Gilmore, Noah Price, Emerson Cross, Daniel Corfield, Lane Peterson, Camden Schrock, Amos Ballard, Micah Bruckner, Kat Knoll, Kai Turner, Zachariah Woodland, Kohana Albino, Hunter Price, Avery Staggs, and the coaches, Tyler Mallory, Cody Gilmer, volunteer coaches Cole Peterson and Nick Woodard, and the community's support. Now therefore be it resolved by the Assembly of the Kenai Peninsula Borough that the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly recognizes, commends, and congratulates the Seward High School football team for winning the 2024 Alaska 9-man football championship. That the Assembly extends its congratulations to Nikiski High School for an excellent season and a runner-up finish. That a special certificate of achievement will be presented to each member of the Seward High School's football team with the commendation of the Assembly. That a copy of this resolution be provided to President Henry Burns Jr. and head coach Tyler Mallory. Adopted by the Assembly of the Kenai Peninsula Borough this 15th day of April 2025, signed by Peter Ribbons, Assembly President. Okay. Okay. Tyler, here's for you and Dr. Burns. One for each of you. And Ronan, Noah, Mark, Hunter, Zach, Brett, Noah, Emerson, Daniel, Lane, Camden, Amos, Micah. Thank you, Micah. Pat. Kai. Zachariah. Kohana Albino. Hunter Price. Avery Stagg. Well.
Can we like all switch over here so I can get a picture of you guys without getting everybody's head?
Get in too, guys. You know me.
Maybe can a couple maybe get over on the other side of the next one?
There you go.
Guys, one more. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
Congratulations, team. And for those of you who are here specifically for the commending resolutions, after your resolution is read, you're welcome to leave. You don't need to stay here and listen to all the other exciting things that we do around here. Okay, well, I believe that moves us on to KPB 6812. Amazingly, Assemblymember Eklund.
Thank you. This will be for the cross-country running team. Thank you, Jody. Good showing. Kenai Peninsula Borough commending resolution, a resolution commending the Seward High School girls cross-country running team, 2024 Alaska Division II state champions. Whereas the Seward High School girls cross-country running team won the 2024 Division II state championship, the team's third straight Division II title. And whereas all 7 girls varsity runners, Catherine Van Buskirk, Lucy Bamford, Maddie Haas, Juniper Ingalls, Sayla Bruckner, Sadie Haas, and Olive Jordan placed within the top 15, with freshman Olive Jordan capping off the extraordinary team showing with the first place finish. And whereas equally impressive is the fact that the team also received the academic award with a collective 4.0 team GPA. And whereas this team started an impressive run of championship titles, runner-up finishes, and academic awards for the Seward High School teams, and it's proof of the team and the coaches' work ethic, dedication, and talent. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Assembly of the Kenai Peninsula Borough that the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly recognizes, commends, and congratulates the Seward High School cross-country running team for being the 2024 Class Division II state champions, that a special certificate of achievement will be presented to each member of the Seward High School girls cross-country running team with the commendation of the Assembly, and that a copy of this resolution be provided to Principal Henry Burns Jr. and Head Coach Rachel Dow. Up. All right. All right.
Girls want to reach together so that I don't get. Nice job, lady.
Oh, Rachel, one for you and one for Principal Burns. Thanks.
Congratulations. Next, KPB 6813, Assemblymember Eklund.
Kenai Peninsula Borough commending resolution, a resolution commending the Seward High School girls basketball 2025 Alaska Class 2A state champion. I'll try not to cry through this one. Whereas the Seward High School girls basketball team won the 2025 Class 2A state basketball championship, and whereas 3-man team. Whereas the Seward Seahawks defeated Glen Allen 51-29 for the title, and whereas the Seward basketball teams have been playing at the 3A level for over 35 years, competing against schools with up to 3 times their enrollment size. And whereas the championship game victory was the culmination of a dominant season in which the Seward Seahawks had 27 straight wins. And whereas led by a defense first mentality and a cohesive group of focused, scholared athletes, this championship is the second girls' state title in school history. And whereas the championship team also had 2 players, Ava Jagilski and McKinley Williams, named to the Class 2A girls state all-tournament team. And whereas this championship season is a testament to the focus, commitment, and team-first mentality of the players. Natalie Saminsky, Addison Lemmy, McKinley Williams, Ava Jagilski, Pamela Hillstead, Grace Fleming, Leah Shank, Reagan Sievert, Seven Phillips, and Olive Jordan, and coaches Curtis Berry, Chris Williams, and volunteer coach Demetra Abergus, and the community spirit. Now therefore be it resolved by the Assembly of the Kenai Peninsula Borough that the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly recognizes, commends, and congratulates the Seward High School girls basketball team for winning the 2025 Class 2A state championship, that a special certificate of achievement will be presented to each member of the Seward High School girls basketball team with the commendation of the Assembly, that a copy of this resolution be provided to Principal Henry Burns Jr. and Head Coach Curtis Berry, adopted by the Assembly of the Kenai Peninsula Borough this 15th day of April 2025, signed by President Peter Ribbons. Thank you. All right. Okay, Natalie's not here. McKinley, Taylor, Alma, Grace, Leah, Reagan, Devin. And Paul Jordan.
Okay, scooch together like your family or something.
Yeah. Seven, yeah, it should have an I.
Congratulations. Next, KPB 6814, Assemblymember Eklund.
Thank you. This will be the cheerleaders. Kenai Peninsula Borough Commending Resolution, a resolution commending the Seward High School girls cheerleaders, 2025 Alaska State Division II Academic Award winners and competition runner-ups. Whereas the Seward High School cheerleaders are the 2025 State Academic Award winners and placed second in the Division II competition. And whereas the SEAC cheerleaders 6-member team, Lola Swanson, Juniper Ingalls, Somi Daniel, Josie Andrews, Addison Gerlach, and Sophia Hughes had a collective 3.96 team GPA. And whereas the Seward Seahawks cheerleading team saw Lola Swanson named to the all-tournament team and Juniper Ingalls received the Good Sportsmanship Award. And whereas this team exemplified the phrase scholar athletes and the entire team, including cheerleaders Adigan Peterson and Mackenzie Davis, coach Jean Beck, and volunteer coach Brittany Swanson proudly represented their school and the Seward community. Now therefore be it resolved by the Assembly of the Kenai Peninsula Borough that the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly recognizes, commends, and congratulates the Seward High School cheerleading team for winning the 2025 Division II Academic Award and for placing second in the Division II competition. That a special certificate of achievement will be presented to each member of the Seward High School's cheerleading team with the commendation of the Assembly. That a copy of this resolution be provided to Principal Henry Burns Jr. and Head Coach Jean Beck, adopted by the Assembly of the Kenai Peninsula Borough this 15th day of April 2025. Give it to her mom. Jennifer, Pauline, Rosie, Sophia, Mackenzie. All right. As much as you can.
Congratulations. Assemblymember Eklund, do you have a commending resolution for every resident of Seward?
I tried.
KPB 6822 brought to you by Assemblymember Eklund.
Kenai Peninsula Borough Commending Resolution, a resolution commending the Seward High School 2025 Alaskan Division II State Wrestling champions. Wrestlers, thank you. Whereas the Seward High School wrestling team won 3 individual first place titles in the 2025 Division II State Tournament, and whereas sophomore Ridge Conant, senior Tommy Jarnig, and senior Hunter Forsey Kurtz had extraordinary showing with the first place finishes. And whereas equally impressive is the fact that Hunter is the first 3-time state champion in Seward High School history. And whereas these student athletes and their coaches, Brian Mullally and Nate Smith, exemplify tenacity, dedication, and talent. Now therefore be it resolved by the Assembly of the Kenai Peninsula Borough that the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly recognizes, commends, and congratulates the Seward High School wrestlers Ridge Conant, Tommy Jarnick, and Hunter Forsey Kurtz as the 2025 Division II state champions. That a special certificate of achievement will be presented to each with accommodation of the Assembly. That a copy of this resolution be provided to Principal Henry Burns Jr. and Head Coach Brian Mullally, adopted by the Assembly of the Kenai Peninsula Borough this 15th day of April, 2025. All right. And they're all here. Thank you, Ridge. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Hunter. All right.
Like here, then I won't get tables and chairs.
Hold on. I hate my picture being taken, but this is for the kids. You got the break. Oh, sorry.
Congratulations. Well, just when you thought I was predictable, now we have KPB 6815 brought to us by Mayor Michicki. Mayor?
Thank you. Welcome to the evening for commending resolutions. This one is dealing with Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Do we have folks here from Lakeshore Center, Haven House, or Seaview, or Seward Safe Harbor? Okay, very good. Whereas sexual assault is an intolerable violent crime with public health implications for every person on the Kenai Peninsula, and no one person, organization, agency, or community alone can eliminate sexual assault. And whereas sexual violence prevention in the Kenai Peninsula Borough can better be addressed through education, counseling, support of victims and survivors, and increased support for service agencies in collaboration with the Lakeshore Center in Kenai, Haven House in Homer, Seaview Community Services, and Seward Safe Harbor in Seward. And whereas the staff and volunteers at the Lakeshore Center, Haven House, Seaview, and Seward Safe Harbor work year-round to address sexual assault by providing 24-hour crisis services, offering support to those impacted by sexual assault, and providing prevention, education, and survivor empowerment information to schools, churches, and civic organizations, as well as to medical, mental health, law enforcement, education, and criminal justice personnel. And whereas the Lakeshore Center, Haven House, Seaview, and Seward Safe Harbor continue to develop and improve the quality of service for those most profoundly and directly impacted by sexual violence. Now, therefore, I, Peter A. Michicki, Mayor of the Kenai Peninsula Borough, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month on the Kenai Peninsula and urge all citizens to support and assist the Lakeshore Center, Haven House, Seaview, and Seward Safe Harbor as they continue their efforts to provide hope and support and to eliminate acts of sexual violence and exploitation within the Kenai Peninsula Borough. Signed, Mayor Peter A. Michicki, Kenai Peninsula Borough. This way. Where do you want it? Right here?
Yep, that would be awesome.
Okay. On your side, here's your proclamations.
Good thing.
Thank you, Mayor Michicki. Now on to presentations with prior notice. KPB 6816, Otto Nip, Seward High School Student Body President. Otto Nip, please come to the podium and give us your 10-minute presentation, please.
All right, perfect. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight as a start. This is a really exciting opportunity for all the students at Seward High School. My name is Otto Nip, and I am the Student Council President at Seward High School. And today I'm here to talk to everyone about all the great events that Student Council has run at Seward High School for the students of Seward High School. So again, my name is Otto Nip, and here with me is
Hello, my name is Somi Clendaniel, and I'm the activity director at Seward High School as part of the student council. And I'm here to talk about all the great activities we plan for students to spend time with one another and build mutual trust and build community among each other.
Thank you, Somi. To start with last year, Seward was lucky enough to host the Student Council Assembly meeting for the entire Kenai Peninsula Borough. We had a great event down at the Sea Life Center. We had pizza, elections, and awesome speakers. Everything went really great. I think ours was the best out of all the ones I've been to personally. So yeah, we had great elections for important positions like student council representative to the school board and other important positions like that. So moving on, we also, our biggest fundraising event of the year, our student council team runs homecoming. We started the day with our float parade, which unfortunately with our new track, we couldn't do it around the track, but even cooler, we were able to do it all throughout the town. So we closed a lot of the roads and a bunch of students, we had great participation. We took a lot of trucks and painted on the windows and decorated them and threw a bunch of candy to kids and had a really awesome time driving through the town, celebrating school spirit. We also had a great football game, got a win and on our new turf field. And then that night we also had the dance and made a lot of money for our student council events to be able to give back to the student body at one point or another. Next with our Halloween costume contest will be Somi.
We were able to make a Halloween costume contest, and we got a lot of involvement from students. Everybody dressed up and came to school, and it was so fun. Everybody got candy, and we were able to get a lot of participation from all throughout the grade, not just freshmen, even seniors participated. So it was a very fun time, and it was a great success, and we hope to do it again next year.
Yes, and then moving on to our events in December, we were able to host, our sophomore class hosted Winter Formal, another one of our school dances. The theme was a winter ball, and it was a great success. Everyone had a lot of fun, even though it was a little chilly. We had a lot of fun in the school, danced all night, and had a great time, and the sophomore class made a lot of money to save for graduation. So to talk about the pep rallies that we've done throughout the year, we have done multiple. We've done several for homecoming, and we do them every year, but it's really exciting. And we'd like to especially thank Jennifer Swander, or Miss Swander, as many of the students know her, for her incredible help in those pep rallies, which we wouldn't be able to do without her. So we'd like to thank her. And then also, one of our biggest annual events of the year, just recently last Friday performed, is our Spring Spheroid Search, which Somi will explain more about.
For the search, we bought little plastic spheroids, which we filled with candy, and we had hundreds upon hundreds of them. And right before school ended, it was an early release day. We hid eggs all around the school with the help of freshmen and sophomores that volunteered to help, and everybody went around after school and found a bunch of eggs filled with candy. And it was great participants. Everybody found every single egg, and a lot of people cleaned up after themselves, which was amazing. And and that's it. Thank you.
Yes, and moving on to this week, actually this Saturday, our junior class is excited to be hosting prom off campus at the Spruce Lodge. The theme will be in the club, and we are excited for, as a junior class, to be able to have one of our final fundraising pushes towards graduation. So yes, and for prom, we have a promposal competition, which has been incredibly run by our activity directors, doing a great job. And here to talk more about it is Somi again.
I don't think it has been done at Seward High School before. I came up with this idea because we wanted to get more people going to prom together, to like get more people to just hang out with each other and build more friends. And it was fun. We got everybody to like the prize for winning the promposal contest was free entrance to prom for the couple. And we got submissions and we're gonna announce the winners tomorrow. And the signs that, I don't know if you guys saw, there was like a prom with like a question sign on the way in. That was one of them. And we hope to do it again next year, but I think we're gonna change the prices up a bit.
Yes, we're really excited for that. It's hopefully going to be an annual tradition at Seward High School now. Really great idea by our student council members and really incredible job by them. This week, we will also be hosting our student council elections, so we are ready to pass the torch off to next year's applicants. We will be hosting our elections tomorrow, and we hope to get a lot of student involvement, lots of applicants to try and run for president, vice president, and all the other important positions that we have. One of our main events of the year that we sponsor is the end of year barbecue at Seward High School. So every year we buy the burgers, the buns, the hot dogs, the chips, and the sodas, and then we put them all in the cafeteria, and we have our great Mr. Hinders, our student council sponsor, grill up some burgers for the students and have a great time on the last day of school, celebrate making it through another year. So to conclude the speech, I'd like to thank everyone that helps with student council, all of our student council members, SOMI, everyone that helps. I really couldn't do it without all of them. So really appreciate them. And I'd especially like to thank Mr. Hinders. This is one of his last years at Seward High School, and he has been the student council sponsor for a really long time. So let's all give a round of applause to Mr. Hinders for doing a great job of student council throughout his entire time in Seward, and really like to thank him for all his hard work. So yeah, do you have anything else to add, Somi?
I think you covered everything.
Great. Great. Well, I'd like to thank you guys all for coming out tonight and listening. Have a great night.
Thank you. That moves us on to the point in our agenda, excuse me, for public comments on items not appearing on the agenda. If there's anyone who wishes to comment, there are 3 minutes per speaker. Please come to the podium, state your name and location that you live, and remember to keep your comments focused on policy, not personality. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak?
Yes, sir. First on the list is Eric Davidson.
Mr. Davidson, please come to the podium. State your name, your location of residence, and you will have 3 minutes. Sorry, thank you, Madam Clerk, and we were going to have a 20-minute aggregate.
Hi, my name is Eric Davidson. I'm from Hope, and I've come down to Seward tonight to communicate to you folks some of the things that we've been discussing in Hope lately concerning the potential budget cuts in the Department of Education and the school district next year. Has many folks very anxious and concerned because we only have just a few faculty and members in the school. And if we were to lose one, it would change the dynamic of the entire community greatly. And I know that when we think about ways to save money, we don't always understand the implications of our decisions beyond the numbers. So when we were up here, or when these young people were up here and we were celebrating and commending them, it was such a joyous moment. And when I think about celebrating them and the joy that it brings us all, and to have them in a situation where maybe they wouldn't get to excel in the way that they do now, that becomes really, really difficult for me as a parent. I'm a family man. I have 3 kids in the Hope School. And my concern is that if the school was somehow, the budget was affected in a way that the staff wasn't able to be there to contribute to them, if they had to, for example, take online courses or something comparable to what we saw during COVID, where they had to have remote classes. Well, my daughter is a freshman this year, and all of her classes have been at the school except one. and the class that she takes, Remote as Government. And the way I see her struggle to understand the concepts being taught, because it's not actually being taught. She has to read the material for herself and understand it for herself. And of course, I try to come along and assist her in many ways that I can, but you know, being that she's a young, growing adult, she wants to be self-sufficient. And so I feel like if we put our young people in a situation where they have to be too self-sufficient, they're not going to be able to excel the way that they should. And so what I'm trying to communicate is that I believe we need to prioritize education on the Kenai Peninsula Borough. It's an investment in our future, in our family lives. If listening to the folks that live in Hope, if they had a situation they were faced with where their kids weren't sufficiently.
Your 3 minutes are up. Can you wrap up quick?
Probably not quick, no.
Thank you for your testimony. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else who has signed up?
Yes, sir. Tara Swanson.
Please come to the podium, state your name and the location of your residence, and you will have 3 minutes.
All right. My name is Tara Swanson. I am a 5th grade teacher at Seward Elementary, and I teach in the classroom where my dad taught me 5th and 6th grade. So this school and this town are very important to me. I certainly never planned on coming back and being in that same room, but I'm very glad that I did. A lot of our conversations about the budget have been filled with a lot of fear, and I think that's really reasonable. I think there's a lot of scary things that our schools face when we're talking about loss of personnel and opportunities for our students, especially in rural communities. But I would like to tell you about opportunities that rural education holds if we choose to prioritize it. Last week, I had a classroom project where each of my students researched a person or event from history. They had the opportunity to take on a research project. It involved actionable feedback, one-on-one conference time, and writing projects that were very involved. And that culminated into a live museum exhibit event where each student embodied those characters. This involved students creating their exhibits, bringing in props, communicating with community members, and this was all possible due to best practice classroom sizes. So as we face these conversations about our budget, I want us to keep in mind that we have a real opportunity here. And if the assembly chooses to not fund to the cap, which is my understanding is the current plan, we are losing out on an opportunity. If there's something that we can do for our kids, then we should be doing it. And I see an opportunity where we could be doing more. And I understand the state is perhaps not following through in the way that they should for their students, but I don't think that is an excuse for us to do any less. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And for the purpose of a decorum within this meeting, please hold your applause. Madam Clerk, has anyone else signed up?
Yes, sir. Is it Albie Tatum?
Please come to the podium and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Albie Tatum. I reside within the Bear Creek area. I'm here tonight as a citizen, a taxpayer, a business owner, and a member of Seward Volunteer Ambulance Corp. Over the past year plus, Bear Creek Fire and Chief Bracken have pushed for and been allowed to move forward on creating and expanding a duplicative service in the area with the addition of a new ambulance, added wages, and new equipment that will equal hundreds of thousands of dollars. Chief Bracken's priorities and focus are set on spending taxpayers' money to duplicate a reliable, skilled, and professional service that Seward Ambulance has already been providing Seward and the Bear Creek area and beyond for over 70 years. At the meeting of the whole earlier today, the mayor mentioned that if any of the assembly members had questions or wanted clarification on how fire and EMS response works, you're welcome to speak with Chief Bracken. I would challenge you to also look at the entire picture and also find out how SVAC contributes, because we are unique. We are a private, nonprofit 501c3 founded in 1953. We provide full-time advanced life support EMS response and transport from Low Point to mile 36 and beyond when requested. We currently have 3 advanced life support ambulances, and when the need arises, as it frequently does, we cover multiple calls, all at the same time, all while maintaining ALS staffing. SVAC provides all of this at no burden to the taxpayers, 0 burden to the taxpayers. We don't even take the yearly money from Aphasia because we are self-sustaining. Chief Bracken and the mayor speak of a lack of service and gaps, and I would challenge for those to be clearly defined, because from an EMS standpoint, we never fail to show up. We never fail to provide professional and adequate service to this area. In FY24, our average time of call to en route time was 5 minutes and 42 seconds, not the 12 minutes that Bracken put in the Aphasia report. SVAC consistently and reliably provides the very service that is being heavily prioritized. And my question is why? Why is duplicating a service for a relatively small service area with approximately 150 calls a year the priority? Why is when Chief Bracken stated earlier that he still wants to use SVAC, but be there if the need arises, what is the need? What is that worry? Why is the focus not on the services that are not currently available to the service area, like low to high angle rope rescue, swift water rescue, or mud and ocean rescue? Why not address the water issues that we have in Bear Creek? Why not these services that also save lives? I would encourage every one of you to get all of the facts, not just the ones being given to you, and then urge you to examine Bear Creek Fire Department's priorities. Refocus on not duplicating a provided service and focus on the needs that fall under this fire service area that are not being met. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Madam Clerk, has anyone else signed up?
Christy Jordan.
Christy Jordan, please come to the podium, state your name and location of residence, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Christy Jordan, and I live in Lowell Point outside of Seward. And I'm here tonight to ask you, when you don't fund to the cap, why? Like, why not fully invest in our children? We had handfuls of children stand before you tonight. We have 2 children sitting in the front row over there. When I came to Seward 10 years ago, when I knew I was going to move here, I visited Seward Elementary. At the time, we had an art teacher, we had a music teacher, we had a full-time librarian. We have none of those anymore. And now with the cuts, we're going to lose Quest, and we're going to lose our elementary school counselor, which happens to be my job. And I love it. And I'm honored to work with children as an elementary school counselor. And I hear a lot of call for, well, school should just be reading, writing, and arithmetic. But I've yet to meet a student who comes to school with only their academic self. Kids bring their social and emotional self to school every single day. And if they do not feel safe, they won't be able to learn. We also know that children learn through art and play. They don't learn through rote and memorization. They learn through social interactions. They learn through relationships. We were all kids once. I doubt we remember exactly what was taught to us in school, but I'm sure we remember a lot of our social interactions, and we remember our teachers. We also have a fabulous teacher sitting in the front row here who's going to lose her job due to your budget cuts. PhD, awesome, loves kids. And so you have the capability to fund more. You can pay $5 million more is the way I understand it. And I know the state needs to do that too, believe me. I'm talking to them too. I've been talking to our school board, but they are put in an impossible situation where they have to make cuts. I'm willing to look for alternative ways to fund my position, but it's not me that I'm worried about. I can get another job that I don't have to plead every year that you should continue to pay me, that I don't need to fight for funding. I could do something else, but I stand here for the kids who can't come before you. The kid that I have to peel away from their parents in the morning because they have separation anxiety and don't want to come to school. The kid who hides under their desk because they're too overwhelmed. The kid who's alone at recess. The kid who's always picked last for PE. The kid who really wants to learn but can't because there's a kid freaking out next to them. If a school counselor's there, I can come and give that kid time. And I don't do therapy. I just listen to kids. Every kid needs to be listened to. And I give them coping skills so they can return to school. I want to keep doing that. I want a full staff. I want arts. I want sports. I want creativity. That's what children want and that's what children need. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else who has signed up to testify?
Mary Beth Zimmerly.
Hi, my name is Mary Beth Zimmerly. I reside in Seward city limits. I have two children who graduated from Seward High School. And as Christy just mentioned, there were several services that were in place, and librarian, art teacher, et cetera. And I have a lot of friends who are still having children in the school system, and it breaks my heart to see these things not be available to them. I just want to echo that need to fully fund the budget to the cap. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk,
That is all I have signed up.
is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak at this time?
Mr. President, we have time for one more, then we've reached our 20 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Go ahead, ma'am. Madam, come to the podium, state your name and your location. And for the rest of you here, there is an additional public comment period at the end of the assembly meeting.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Erin Pierce, and I'm a first grade teacher at Seward Elementary. I've been in education for 22 years. I've served as middle and high school science teacher, an instructional coach, an educational researcher, and an assistant professor at Tarleton State University, which is a major university of Texas A&M University system. In December of 2021, a first grade class at Seward Elementary needed a teacher in the middle of the year. I made the difficult decision to resign my position with the university because there was a need in the community that I love to help the local kids, one of which is now a fourth grade student in the first row. The community needed me and I was happy to help. As a non-tenured teacher at Seward Elementary, I need you the way you needed me. I love my job, I love my students, and there is no place that I would rather be than Seward Elementary. We say we want to retain high-quality teachers. Here's one right in front of you, and my future depends on your actions. Please fund to the cap, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes our period for public comments, and I think we're going to take a 5-minute recess here and reconvene at 7:07. Madam Clerk, are we ready to go? We are going to stand by till the clerk tells me that we are ready, which we are now, and thank you for turning that off. Okay, thank you again for attending this meeting. Mayor Machicki, I think it's your turn.
Thank you. It's good to be in Seward. Hello, everyone. Appreciate your public testimony tonight. Just a few items from the report. You'll see our agreements and contracts on the list, as well as budget revisions, the revenue expenditure report, the TARS report, and Lit Stat report, which is always fascinating how often a large organization like this ends up in the courtroom. But wanted to talk about a few of the items we've been working on that I think are important to many people particularly on the east end of the peninsula. We met with the Davises, who are working on Seward and Funny River housing development projects. So we've been working on bringing down the price of property, working on a new program. It's called a land affordability program. I've talked about for about the last year and a half. I wanted to prioritize borough residents. We found a way to do that thanks to our legal department and land management. I will be dropping an ordinance in May for folks to take a look at that has a pretty significant discount for borough residents for property. My meeting with the Davises is we've challenged them to provide $225,000 housing in various places around the borough. Part of another bill later that or ordinance later that we're talking about, resolution. It's just young people cannot afford housing on the Kenai Peninsula borough. It's worst on the east side and the south end, but the Central Peninsula is problematic as well. So we're just studying, looking for the best options going forward. I've met several times with our legislators and talked to the governor's office and the governor about education funding. And we'll wait for that part when we start talking about the budget issues. The Kenai Peninsula Borough will continue to be the most generous borough in the state of Alaska on education funding. The average for the last 16 years has been 96%. We've only funded to the cap once. Largely, it's because we have a lot of other things to put into play as well. But talking to them about the fact that although this borough has met and increased by inflation plus year after year after year, we can't live on $2011 from the state forever. And I attended last week the superintendent's chamber meeting, and he had one slide, and I encouraged him to use that slide because when I got into the legislature, we had like $27 oil, so there were some pretty extreme cuts to everything but education. Almost all the other departments were cut. Well, those departments have come roaring back, sometimes twice the level of inflation while education's been frozen. It's a personal thing against education. It's a strange philosophical opposition to public education because nothing else explains it. A lot of those folks hate the courts. Courts have roared up 45% since back then. So we have a lot of work to do on the state. No matter what we fund, we can't keep up. It doesn't solve the problems you're talking about. The state has got to get on a program of increasing in real dollars on a regular basis, or we will find ourselves in this situation year after year after year like we have for the last 15. It's not going to get better without the legislature and the governor growing up and the people of Alaska recognizing the fact that what you read on your favorite source of news is not what's happening in our schools. My kids are all publicly educated. They're all excelling. I'm very proud of the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. We need to stick together as a team because without the legislature's help, we can't get there. I met with Anchorage Solid Waste with our folks, and I just wanted you to know the results of that is that we're beginning a statewide solid waste working group. We all have similar challenges, similar regulations. Everyone's struggling with how to meet some of the new regulations. Everyone's got leachate. So I think we can borrow from one another on, and perhaps exchange waste streams in places where it makes sense as well, working on recycling issues. Let's see, we had our solid waste recycle working group on the 7th that included 2 RSAC members, Tim Crumrine, Mr. Hedges, Ruffner, Dana Canova, and Tom Winkler, who's our new KPB Facilities and Operations Manager. Sharp guy. Please introduce yourself to him when you get a chance. He's our new facilities guy, and he's been working with the facilities group, but our first target is working on getting back to what's best for the planet from our solid waste management practices, which we've been struggling with since, well, for a long time, but particularly since the baler quit. We are pricing out a new baler, pricing out a shredder. We likely have enough laps or enough in the budget for next year for covering those. We do have some partners, private sector partners that are interested in better handling their waste. Well, us doing a better job handling their waste. So I think we can keep the cost down and get back into recycling those streams that are favorable to recycle. Homer area folks, we had a KC school project meeting with the superintendent, Mr. Hedges, Mr. Lyon, and Kevin Kinney, who's the project manager. Just want to have a very transparent discussion at this time. We're struggling with the schools we have. If the right answer is building a new school in KC So a lot of things got kicked around in that meeting. We'll keep you posted. I know those folks have been waiting for a generation now for a school replacement. It's different, but I did want people to be aware of that challenge. Lots of meetings internally on solid waste, land affordability stuff, and our land plan, comprehensive land plan. Our goal is to provide borough land with a program like the fall land sale we're planning on is going to have about half of those properties qualified for the land affordability program. We'll get the word out, but I think that will be really helpful for folks on borough residents getting a 25% break on the cost of that property. So it'll still be competitive bid, but with a 25% break and a requirement for building housing within a certain amount of time. We're working out the details. We want housing. We don't want speculation. We're all victims of speculation by people from somewhere else in this borough. And we're looking for a way to counter some of that and hopefully levelize the explosive increase in housing valuation by making it's a supply and demand issue. If we can help with some of the supply, hopefully we can reduce the escalation because of the demand as well. The market is responding, slowest I've seen. I think there are a lot of things that were complicated this time since COVID, increased interest rates and just the instability that we've seen the last few years, I think has made the market slower to respond. I think we're starting to see a response and that's helpful. This Saturday, I met with the Sterling Highway Project team, Senator Bjorkman and I, Dowell, DOT, and QAP had a working lunch Saturday afternoon, just talking about that Sterling Highway project and what they're hearing from the public, what they're hearing from their superiors. Usually the commissioner is at those meetings on trying to find what the best fit in the community's eyes are for the different road projects on the Kenai. I think he's been fairly responsive. I know there are some challenges on this end in the Moose Pass area. If you have questions and that are not being answered by the department, I'm happy to filter those back up. We get a pretty immediate response, but I'm pleased with the direction of that project and the Spur Highway project, which is going out for bid this month. Again, I talked about legislative ed funding meetings. It is my target. We should have a strategy. That strategy should be to get the best return from Juneau possible. Nothing else is survivable without a substantial increase. In my view, the Senate was not strategic in stripping all of the governor's programs. That's not going to get a bill passed, just not. So they've got time to get back together and hopefully worry less about demonstrating your authority versus delivering for the schools of the state of Alaska. It's no time for games. We can't afford it. Folks need to work together or nothing happens. Demand will not be overridden. That means you've got to bring folks together to a solution. So I hope we get there. And I'll leave it there. The only other thing I wanted to touch on is we've been contacted by communities on the Southern Peninsula about working better together on fire service and EMS with tiny little departments that are pretty fractured, on seeing if there's a way for us to come together. We talked about that in different areas of the borough. I kind of dropped it for a little while because I got busier on other projects. And we heard from them. We will be having some meetings to see what they have in mind and where their interests lie, and if it's best for all residents of the Kenai Peninsula Borough, where we represent all 62,000. So, yeah, that's it for me, unless there are any questions, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor Michicki. Not seeing any. Okay, well, unless the vice president tells me otherwise, I believe this moves us on to unfinished business. Postponed items, resolution 2025-017, requesting the state legislature provide municipalities authority to enact a cap on real property tax assessment increases, brought to us by the mayor and Vice President Cooper. There is a motion to enact on the floor from the first of this month's meeting. Committee report, please, Chair Tunseth.
Thank you, President Ribbons. Resolution 2025-017, as you stated, is requesting that the state legislature provide municipalities the authority to enact a cap on real property tax assessment increases. This was discussed at our previous meeting of the assembly, and again, and it was postponed at that meeting. It was discussed again today during our finance committee. I'll just briefly sort of lay out what's also been included in the memo. In that state law currently mandates that a municipality assess all property at its full and true value as of January 1st of a tax year, and requires municipalities to determine full and true value based on market value. This resolution really would request an amendment to Title 29 to provide municipalities with the option. This is not a mandate, but the option to enact an ordinance that would cap year-over-year increases at 5%. In addition, this requests that the state not penalize a municipality for enacting a cap on assessments. But that's really what this is it's just sort of it's requesting that the legislature change Title 29 that would give a municipality the flexibility to make that decision if they so chose to. That would be up for us if the legislature were to take our letter and say, hey, we agree with you, and then move that legislation all the way through. Then we would have the option, and we would be looking at that option at that point as an assembly of whether or not that made sense. It's really, as the mayor has sort of outlined before, you have kind of a couple levers that you can pull on to control your spending or your funding, and for those are mill rate increases and property tax. And so we can probably achieve some of this other ways, but this would just give us a tool, kind of in the toolbox, if you will, to look at when we would have those years where maybe there was property increases at fair and true value that were, 8, 10, 12, 15%, really high increases. This would provide like a buffer for people to be able to not have to be over that amount and, maintain a sort of level expected tax bill. So that's probably maybe a more in-depth report than needed, Mr. Ribbons, but I think that covers it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Tunseth. Is there any assembly discussion? Vice President Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did want to
Point of order. Should that not go to public comment? Oh, is that because we already did that?
Madam Clerk?
Through the president, Mr. Cox, public hearing was held at the April 1st meeting. It is not required to hold a second public hearing.
Thank you.
Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to let the assembly know that I'm bringing forth an amendment that kind of clarifies the language in there, and I'll bring that forward as we have our discussion. But when we talk about increase, the Eastern Peninsula and the Southern Peninsula, we know what it is for a large increase in our property values, right? We've been discovered. And there are many that think that that can be managed through the mill rate, and that is one way. What I can tell you is there's lots of us in this room that have been giving a lot of time to the assembly for many years. Politics can get in the way of that. I like consistency. So having this ability for it being optional, if we have an assembly or a mayor that wants to maintain that mill rate for whatever their budgetary purposes are, this allows us to have a cap of not more than 5, or when the property goes over 5% increase a year, gives stability to all of us that are trying to make our budgets throughout the year. So I really like this, and as it says, it's optional, but it does give us the ability to stabilize the areas that do have significant growth, and these two areas have certainly seen that. And then I'll ask for your time when it's time for an amendment.
Thank you, Vice President. Is there any other assembly discussion? Assemblymember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I guess I didn't realize that we weren't going to have a demonstration of how this could work on parcels that went up 50% in a year and how this would get back to zero. And I apologize for not realizing that I was supposed to ask that question, but I still have that question because I didn't ask it. I have sat on the Board of Equalization for about 10 years, and I have seen property values at times go up 50% or so and continue to go up over a period of time. And I need to know how those properties are going to get back to zero. Mr. Cox sent us some information, 4 different articles of other areas that have implemented property tax caps. Before he sent those, a couple of years ago, and again this fall, I also looked up articles. I found different articles than the one Mr. Cox found. And in every case, in the 4 cases that Mr. Cox presented to us, and in the cases that I looked up, all of those caused a property tax burden to shift to young people who were buying property, to people who didn't own property very long. People who had property for a long time had the tax burden shift away from them to younger people. We have heard testimony from people to the assembly asking us to make property more affordable for young people. So this would be something that would hurt that, in my opinion. Kenai Peninsula Borough property tax mill rates are significantly lower than similarly sized boroughs. Our borough, the average property tax rate is about 9.4 mills. We saw that in the figures I presented at the last meeting. In the Mat-Su borough, they're about 10.3 mills, and Fairbanks are about 10.6 mills. Kodiak is 12.4 mills, Anchorage 16.1 mills. There's a real good reason why that is what it is. It isn't because we're miraculous board assembly members and the mayors have been geniuses. It's because we have a 3% sales tax, and neither Anchorage, Mat-Su, nor Fairbanks has any sales tax. So we have already taken a giant tax burden and shifted it away from property owners to all people. And all people includes those people who don't own property. The mayor told us again tonight, as he said in the past, and I don't disagree with what he said. I don't know if it's true, but I don't disagree. But he says that property tax assessments in our borough are lagging behind the true value. They're lower than the true value. That could very well be true. He illustrated that when we brought borough property to auctions, that we got more than the assessed value on average for our properties. And so that seems to indicate that perhaps we're behind, although I can assure you from working with the assessing department that they try very hard to get it accurate and at 100% true value. There's one other factor in our property tax values that we need to consider, and that is that the Kenai Peninsula Borough has the best property tax exemptions in the state of Alaska. Our $350,000 exemption is $300,000 for senior citizens, and that is higher than any other senior citizen exemption in the state. We also have a $50,000 exemption that is added onto that, and while many areas have a $50,000 exemption, I think none have a greater and some have a less. And so we already have a great property tax break for people who have had property for a long time, which is where senior citizens generally are in the scenario that we're talking about. And so I am concerned that this option may be something that would hurt a group of people that I'm very concerned about, and that is people that want to buy property. If this is brought forward tonight to a vote, I'll vote against it. I'm certainly willing always to learn more. I just simply haven't learned any more than my own research, which you just heard me give. And I'm sympathetic as could be to people who are paying high property taxes. But I want to make sure that the solution isn't harmful. And in every one of the scenarios that I researched and that Mr. Cox researched, there are some very bad down factors to those. So, Mr. President, thanks a lot for letting me speak.
Is there any additional assembly discussion? Assemblymember Cox.
Thank you. So I too had some of those similar questions. One scenario that I ran through just thinking about is if we get to a point where we do have a time where it's consistently, where the inflation is consistently above 5%, how do we end up taking care of that? So essentially what that means is then our costs go higher as well because inflation continues to rise. If that's the case, and we need to do a mill rate increase at that point, who would that mill rate increase affect? That would affect those that don't have an exemption. And so what that would do is increase that for those folks because we have a cap on the system. Now, is that the scenario that would happen? I don't know. It's not a answer that I have. I don't have the answer to what's going to happen in the future. But it is a question that I have, and I know something similar has happened in other areas because there are articles that say that. Are those articles exactly what we're doing here? No, they're not. But they're the only articles that I could find. And being that is, I'm going to take some of that into account. I would have to agree with Mr. Johnson. I'm kind of on the same thing. Is if we can be convinced that this is a good thing and that you can see that there's not going to be, that the downside is very limited, I would like to see that. Thank you.
Any further assembly discussion? Assemblymember Tunseth.
Thank you, President Ribbons. I probably have just a slightly different take on this. I stated this at the last meeting. I feel like in a way, analyzing whether this would be a progressive or regressive tax change of who exactly, would be affected and at which property valuations things would shift, and would there be a shift in burden from young people to old people? If you would your property tax value be locked in? Would it change if you sold your home? Would the new homeowner coming in be taxed to the full value, or would they get, to me, it feels like a debate that we're having about something that's not on the table right now. And so my question, I guess, for people who would be against it would be, if this was a bill in the legislature right now, would you be asking the assembly for a letter of opposition against it? Or would you want the option. Would you want this as an available tool to you to be able to look at should the situation arise? And then let's have that really deep and robust debate. Let's look at all these things as to whether or not they make sense, whether they help us or not. And if it needed to be written in a way that made it sound a little less toothy, like the assembly wasn't 100% on board with this, we really want this, simply just asking for flexibility, perhaps that would make it easier. But that would be my question to people who are against it is, if there was a bill currently, which there's not, on the table in the state legislature, would we be asking for them to, would you be asking for them for us as an assembly to oppose that? That's just a question to think about, but that's all. Thank you, President Ribbons.
Thank you. Mayor Machicki, I certainly am going to get to you. I believe Assemblymember Morton's light may have been on.
It was, thank you. I feel like if we had the information to run the numbers, that we could make a more informed decision on this. I sat down and tried to do it by hand. I have, great equations, but what I don't have is the actual data from the last 20 years to use to see how it would have worked out. I can make guesses on it. And as long as the average is under 5%, then you're going to come out, you're going to win that one. But if you have a 10-year stretch where the average does not come out to be less than 5%, you're not going to catch up. And so it comes to not being able to predict the future. But I had hoped we'd see something using the real numbers as examples. Thank you.
Assemblymember Eklund.
Thank you, President Ribbons. I too have too many questions. I know this is just requesting the state to provide the opportunity, but I don't want that opportunity to come to us without my understanding the effect. I asked for something like a whiteboard demonstration or some better numbers. And I believe that those numbers were made available but not shared with us so that we could look at how this would run over 10, 15, 20 years. 34 years, we got some numbers about what the rate was at 4.33 or something like that over 34 years. Well, that's a long time ago, and our property taxes now are much higher than they were 34 years ago. And I can't imagine them, the property values going down. And if we're assessing on the true and real value, I just can't support it. I still have too many questions. Can it change from year to year? It sounded like we could change it area by area. It's just, and at this point, I'm not ready to support it. Thank you, President Ribbons.
Mayor Machicki.
I am working with some folks on an opportunity to control the escalation of valuation in the state of Alaska, and perhaps I made an unwise choice in bringing it to the assembly for that discussion, but I'd like for you to consider some things. I'm going to continue with this effort. The people we represent are choking on valuation increases and property tax increases. That is a fact. And the lower income you are, that if you're lucky enough to own a home, most of you don't because it's unaffordable because of the escalation rate. An affordable home in the Kenai Peninsula Borough right now is $350,000. Well, that's not an affordable home, it's 6%. No one in that income bracket is purchasing a home. And so this might take a little while. Is that okay?
Take your time. This is an important topic and we should understand it clearly.
2945-110 says we must assess at full and true value every year. We do have a mill rate adjustment. By assessing at full and true value at the escalation we've seen in the last 4 years, which is 30.11%, is unsustainable, unaffordable, and we can't do anything about it. I'm asking for the ability to limit that growth. 5 years, from 2006, 2010, it went up 41.87%. The 4.33 escalation is an okay escalation. That was over the past 43 years. It wasn't, or 34 years. It wasn't different 34 years ago. That's the average over 34 years. So we picked 5% because it's above that. Sometimes it's going to go 5%. We can change the number. You guys are trying to write the ordinance. This isn't about the ordinance. This is about the fact that we're trapped. Alaska municipalities are trapped. We can do nothing about assessing differently. So we're buying in, and assessments are a point of data that everyone refers to when they're purchasing a piece of property. That's where they start. Then they go with whatever realtors do to mark it up. And we have people from somewhere else buying a lot of our housing that are from a different economic situation. And that's why we've seen that extreme escalation. Just fighting for our taxpayers on trying to level the impacts of a family that had an 11% increase in their taxes in 2009 and had a 9% increase in their taxes in 2024. Now, I had a pretty good career. It's not killing me. We can still afford to go get some groceries and get through it. There's an awful lot of people where $80 a month tax increase is the difference between making it and not making it. Now, we could reduce the mill rate, and the borough has over time, but we're sitting on about 10 million extra dollars right now that needs to be dispersed. You'll see during the budget cycle that we've got a design to bring us back within the budget constraints that we're required to do within 3 years. But this is, I'm not writing the ordinance. You would get to choose what the terms are. You might choose to do it 1 year on an 11% year when you know the escalation is extreme to try to give people a break. You can still bring the mill rate down. This is about leveling out the whole system. So it's not jagged on value and mill rate. It's just a smooth, everybody has a pretty good idea what their costs are going to be over time. It's not complicated. The hard discussion is during the ordinance when we decide what do we want to deal with. We know we always have a lagging value. What do we want to have in here? Maybe it's 6%. We can look at it's only been 9 years that it's been, the 34 years, there's been 13 years above 5% and 9 years above 6%. Maybe 9 years is the right number. We've only had 4 years when it's been less than 0. So in 34 years, we've had a negative valuation. What does that mean? It's continually climbing very fast. And most of it has very little to do with those of us that live here. So my approach was having a tool in the toolbox that we could consider. It's not the ordinance. We certainly don't need to worry about taxing every dollar when we know how we're doing right now on what we're holding in fund balance. It's okay if it takes someone a year to catch up. This has nothing to do with the negative impacts on homeowners, young homeowners. That comparison is California Prop 13. They froze values for people in their homes forever. This could be a 1 year thing. Maybe you make it a 3 year thing. Maybe you just do it when valuations are high. The Florida Amendment 4, my 94-year-old mother who's been in her house for 56 years, no, for 62 years, pays $3,500. She paid $36,000 for her house back then. She lives on the water in Fort Lauderdale. Her taxes are $3,500. Her next door neighbor's taxes are $20,000. That is something that locks in valuation forever. That's not what we're talking about. And then some of the states went too tight at 3%. 3% isn't enough. You shouldn't try to keep it that flat. That doesn't work. But if we're at 5, 6%, we decide to talk over those details. That time will come when we talk about an ordinance. This is just a discussion of should we have a tool in the toolbox that could allow us to have that discussion seriously. So we can use the stuff that we ask the internet when you say what's bad about putting a cap on annual assessments, or we can look at stories when we say what's good about annual assessments to the internet, right? The internet will give us everything accurately that we need. But think about what I'm actually saying here. I don't know what the ordinance looks like. I'm only talking about asking the legislature for more tools. Because when people call us every year by the hundreds, when you've had a 30% increase in 4 years, we get calls by the hundreds. They don't understand, wait, I have the same house. I haven't done anything to it because I can't afford to. Why have my taxes gone up 30% in 4 years? We have the mill rate thing, but when the valuation's going up that high, those families that you're talking about, Mr. Johnson, will not be buying homes. That's why rentals are tight. That's why we have no new construction. It is too expensive. We're starting to see a reaction from the market, but I think that's why the market was so delayed. Everything's high, interest is high. I think builders are worried about whether or not they can get something off the market and cover their costs with all the escalation we've seen. So it's just a tool. It's fine if you can't support it. It's not going to change my efforts. The bottom line in this, though, is the ordinance is the key. If we have that right, this is just asking for the right to have a different discussion about controlling escalation on real estate valuations in the Kenai Peninsula Borough.
Thank you, Mayor. Vice President Cooper.
I would like to move forward the amendment. There was some confusion on the language that seemed a little bit gray. So on the bottom of page 1, section 1, it currently reads to enact at their option a cap or limit of real property tax assessment increases of no more than 5% from the previous year's assessment. I would like to strike no more than 5%. And so it will now read, enact at their option a cap or limit on real property tax assessment increases of 5% or more. Just clarifies that it was just a little ambiguous before.
Madam Clerk.
Unfortunately, we do not have this amendment in the back of the room. So if I may, can we read the amendment in its full? And I'm happy to assist if you would like me to. Thank you. Section 1 would read that the Assembly requests the current legislature review and amend AS 2945 relating to municipal taxation and any other relevant state statutes to provide discretionary authority for municipalities to enact at their option a cap or limit on real property tax assessment increases, strike no more than 5%, insert of 5% or more from the previous year's assessment unless there have been improvements or changes to the property. State law should provide that municipalities must enact such a cap by ordinance, and the state shall not penalize municipalities that enact the optional cap. Should I continue? Are we going to move them separately or together?
Go ahead and continue, sorry.
Thank you.
Let's move them together.
Section 2, that the proposed amendment to AS 2945-110 is provided below for the Alaska Legislature's consideration with additions shown in bold underlined. AS 2945-110, full and true value. A, the assessor shall assess property at its full and true value as of January 1 of the assessment year, except as provided in this section, AS 2945-060 and 2945-230. The full and true value of the estimated price of that property would bring in an open market and under the then prevailing market conditions in a sale between willing seller and a willing buyer, both conversant with the property and with the prevailing general price levels. The assessor shall determine the full and true value as provided in standards adopted by the department under E of this section or another set of standards provided by ordinance. We would insert, notwithstanding any requirements of this section to the contrary, a municipality may, by ordinance, provide a cap on real property assessments that limits assessments increases for a property to strike no more than a 5% insert or greater increase from the previous year's assessment unless the assessment increase for the property is based on the addition of structures or other improvements that were not previously known to the assessor. A municipality is authorized to enact other requirements to administer and enforce a limit on assessment increases in accordance with this section, and the state shall not penalize in any way a municipality for enacting a limit on assessment increases. The department shall provide such guidance and assistance to local municipalities as may be needed to implement this provision.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Vice President, does that complete your proposed amendment?
Yes, sir.
Is there any assembly discussion? Assemblymember Baisden.
I'd like to second, that's unanimous.
It's hard for me to tell whose light is on down there. Is that you, Assemblymember Johnson?
It is, and I object to unanimous, but if I could get Vice President Cooper to explain the difference again to her amendment.
Vice President.
Certainly. So they basically say the same thing in my understanding, but the way it was being interpreted was that no more than 5% from the previous year's assessment. So it was like it was a limit. And so we have changed that verbiage just a little bit to change it to a increase of 5% or more from the previous year's assessment.
Assemblymember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, okay, so there is basically no difference. Here is where I'm at with the 5%. And Mayor Michicki mentioned that over a 34-year period, all the properties in the borough averaged a 4.3% increase. And if that, I know a little bit about averages, and if the whole properties average at 4.3%, that means that some of them are going to be higher and some lower. And it's the ones that are higher that I'm worried about. I'm worried about there are going to be certain properties, and if there's only one property that exceeds this value for a long period of time, you cannot get the assessing value back to even. And unless somebody can work with specific properties on a whiteboard or a piece of paper, and I suggest that the assessing director, Ms. Wilcox, would be excellent at doing that, but I'll take anyone, and I just need to know that. We talked about this is only an option. We're just going to send this off to the legislature, and it's an option. If they pass it and it comes back in the form like we passed it, then it's an option for us. But I can assure you there have been some options in history that have gone very, very bad. Some person decided to take an option of introducing Northern Pike into the Susitna drainage. It was a really bad option, and we're spending years trying to figure out how to get rid of Northern Pike, and nobody has an answer yet. It's happened numerous times in wildlife situations. There simply are too many unknowns in this. I need to know that it's going to work, or else I'm not in favor of it. And I understand I can vote no and go on, and I'll be happy with however everybody else votes, but that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Mayor Michicki.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, I just, so I'll just give you a couple of examples. The reason that for the change is it was interpreted that the cap was 5%. And I wanted to make sure that my intention was known that as we studied this, if we ever got the option, and I don't remember the bill on introducing Northern Pike, but when we talk about the details, that we have the option of perhaps 6% as the line, perhaps 6.5% as the line. So the higher that line is, the less properties it impacts. But in that, if we want to talk about an ordinance possibility, it could be a bracket that says any property with an extreme escalation due to something else does not enjoy that level above a certain amount. You know what I mean? So if there's been some forgotten property out there, which is less and less likely these days with our current technology, then you could write that into the ordinance if you're worried about that. Or a property above 15% must be caught up within 3 years or something. So even if you had not enough room below 5%, that property had to be caught up. If it's something you're worried about, it's not something I'm worried about, but I get your point. So that's the ordinance part. If we want to, that's when we start looking at all those things that might not work at that, trying to limit the escalation so that we can slow it down over time and not have those spikes that are difficult for folks. That once in a while forgotten property can be a part of that ordinance if that's, as we're working through this.
It seems to me as though this discussion is moving back into the resolution itself rather than the amendment. Are there any discussions that are specific to the amendment? Hearing and seeing none. Vice President, do you have a proposal for us to take a vote on this?
Unanimous was rejected, so we'll need to vote.
I remove my objection.
I asked for unanimous.
Unanimous has been requested on the amendment. Are there any objections to unanimous on the amendment? Hearing and seeing none, the amendment passes. Now we are back to the resolution on the floor. Assemblymember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Mayor Machicki, that's exactly what I'm looking for. You mentioned that a property could go up some great amount. 50%, I think, is a number that I might have seen in my years on the Board of Equalization. But for all properties, what is the year that we are intending to bring this back to even? For all properties, is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Because there must be some year that we're trying to get this back to even. Otherwise, you're going to end up like California and Florida, where it just exacerbates through time. And that's where I have my concern, is that it needs to get back to zero. And I remind everyone that this doesn't lower taxes. This is like a commercial fisherman who averages his income, which is a wonderful thing, averaging income, by the way. But it doesn't change things. It just averages things, as I understand it. Thank you.
Mayor Machicki, I know that this is turning into ask the mayor questions, but for the purpose of efficiency, I'm going to go to, I believe it's Assemblymember Morton, in the possibility that she will be asking something that you can answer at the same time.
Actually, what I was going to say is not a question. I have figured it out. Like, I mean, I have not figured it out. I sat down and calculated out, with a 5% cap, for year one, what it would be for year two, year three, and year four. So over a 4-year period, your growth on an individual property would be 21.55%, using that 5% each year. So you'd be 5% the first year, and then that 5% rolls into the value of the property. So the next one is 10.25. The next year, the third year would be 15.76. And the fourth year, you get 21.55%. So it does come down to what that first big number is. If you had an 11% increase in 1 year, but then the average of the next 3 years was 3%, it only takes like 2 years to catch up, 2.5 years. If you have an 11% increase and then the average is of the next 3 years is 4.66, it takes over 10 years to catch up. So it is really specific to individual properties. It is doable though on a whiteboard to show this and how it works. I'm not afraid of it as long as we can, if when it comes to doing the ordinance, if we only pass it every year or two so that we could keep track of it. But I mean, it's not, it sounds way more complicated to understand than it is. The problem is we don't have the whiteboard, because I can run it on the whiteboard and show when you reach equalization.
Mayor Machicki.
So yeah, that's what's been hard about this is you wrote an ordinance in advance. Thank you. I appreciate you supporting that ordinance. But we have not. So what is the ordinance? You can't calculate it. So if you did it that way, right? The highest, Ms. Morton, the highest, and we talked about this, was between 2006 and 2010, 41.87%. But you already made up, because it's 5 years, you made up 25% of it. So you have 15% to go. If you were the 5%, and if that was the time, on some of the other times, like 2001 to 2003, they were all just above 5. You were made up by year 2. If you made it 6%, you would only have 1% to make up because only 1 year was higher than that. So that's why the whiteboard's hard. We're already writing the ordinance. This is a concept. If we wanted to do you know, if we get to that point someday and I drop an ordinance and we have the right to do that, that's the time where we have that discussion of what is the right, and that's how we would choose the right number, right? That's how we choose the 5.5 or 5 or 7% or whatever we choose, the top we're going to shave off to try to level things off for people. So that's why it was hard. How do you present something when we don't know what we'll be looking at the time? But I appreciate that you worked through it because you at least get, if you were at that 5% level and you had an extreme many years of increase, what it might look like. But if we have that many years of an increase, we're in trouble. And to say that we just reduce mill rates immediately when we have high valuation, that sometimes we do. Sometimes we hang on to it for years. We've done a pretty good job. I mean, you can look at the history of the drops, but you can look at years that had some pretty healthy time where they didn't hurry up and drop mill rates, particularly because folks in government sort of naturally like to have a little bit more of a buffer than they need. So it's just another lever to levelize. I don't know what the ordinance looks like, but you heard the concept from Ms. Morton on that 5%, if that were the case. I hope that answers the question.
The wonders of compound interest. Assemblymember Cox.
Yes, just a couple of comments. One, we've been talking a lot about the assessment, but I do want to remind everyone that what people pay in property taxes is not because of the assessment. It is because of the mill rate. That can be changed. Capping an assessment will not change the sale price of a home. Okay, that's based on economics and inflation. And then when you talk about, in my personal life, I've purchased a lot of property, and I do know that our realtors do not base their price on the assessment. They base it on prior sales. That's what they base it on. Okay, so yes, we can have discussions about how this could affect things, but it's not going to affect the price of homes. Okay, the reason homes are expensive in Seward and in Homer are because there's not very many. That's why. It's because there's a lack of what is needed. It isn't going to change by an assessment. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Madam Clerk, looks like we're ready for a vote.
Mr. Johnson,
No.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Tunseth,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
No.
Ms. Morton,
Yes.
Ms. Eklund,
No.
Mr. Cox,
No.
Mr. Baisden,
Yes.
President Ribbons.
No.
I have 5 no, 4 yes. The yes votes were cast by Ms. Cooper, Mr. Tunseth, Ms. Morton, and Mr. Basin. The motion fails.
Thank you for the careful deliberation on this important matter. Moving on to new business, Resolution 2025-19, amending Resolution 2025-037 to extend the last meeting and final report deadline of the Tourism Industry Working Group. And that one also went to the Finance Committee, I believe. So that would be you again, Mr. Tunseth.
Thank you, President Ribbons. I covered this a little bit at the start during the committee report, but Resolution 2025-019 amends Resolution 2025-037 to extend the last meeting for the final report of the Tourism Industry Working Group. In discussions that I've had, I know others have had with that group, it sounded like they weren't able to reach consensus yet on a final report, but maybe that a little bit more time would help them get there. And so I think that's the intent of this resolution. I would just ask Ms. Cooper if she wanted to elaborate on that. It was her sponsoring resolution. Thank you.
I believe we also need a motion to adopt.
I would make that motion to adopt resolution 2025-019.
Thank you. Vice President Cooper?
Mr. Tuns has summed it up perfectly. This group has been great to work with. They just need a little more time, and that is why we've requested another 30 days.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak to resolution 2025-019? Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak to this?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak to this? Seeing none, is there any assembly discussion? Assemblymember Cox.
Yes, I would like to make an amendment, and then if I could speak to that, I would love that. The amendment would be to section 1, resolution 2024 it would read, resolution 2024-037 is hereby amended to extend the deadline established in section 4 of resolution 2024-037 by /30 days, change that to 60 days. The last meeting of the tour industry working group is extended to /May, change that to June 15th, 2025. And a final report, if adopted, will be provided to the assembly by June /May, put June 30th, 2025, if that adds up to 60 days, which it might need to be the 29th. But the reason for that would be is in attending those working groups is what that group has asked for is to have more time to discuss some of the options available to them. And I just don't see it possible if we've only had a meeting once each month and then some were canceled and things, but you can see that in what I had added in here, is if that's the same trajectory we're on, there would only be one meeting in the month of May. And that one meeting would only allow for a final report again, rather than have one meeting where everyone can speak to it and then have a meeting with the final report with whatever their ideas are. So anyways, that would be my motion.
Any assembly discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none? Assemblymember Johnson?
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. Could you explain that to me briefly again, Mr. Cox?
Assemblymember Cox.
Thank you. What I would be asking for is for it to be extended 60 days instead of 30, because what may happen is to bring a final report back. If we're just going, the last meeting, they had a final report that they did not pass. What the members had said in their comments was that they wanted more time to discuss options.
I got it.
It would be hard to discuss options and have a final report in the same meeting.
Any further assembly discussion? Assemblymember Cox.
I would ask for unanimous.
Unanimous has been requested. Is there any objection? Hearing and seeing none, it passes. So that brings us back to, if I recall correctly, that brings us back to the resolution. Is there any further assembly discussion on the resolution on the floor? Hearing and seeing none. Vice President Cooper.
I request unanimous, please.
Unanimous has been requested. Is there any objection?
No. Yes, there's an objection.
There is an objection, and I'm gonna assume it is Assemblymember Eklund because I can't see past all the heads down there.
Yes, President Ribbons, it was Member Eklund.
Okay, in that case, Madam Clerk, I believe that brings us to a vote.
Ms. Morton?
Yes.
Bless your heart. Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Eklund?
No.
Mr. Tunseth?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Baisden?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
No.
President Ribbons?
Yes.
I have 7 yes, 2 no. The no votes were cast by Ms. Eklund and Mr. Cox. Motion passes.
Okay, I believe Vice President, that moves us on to public comments. Am I correct about that?
You are absolutely correct, Mr. President, as always.
Thank you for keeping me on track. So this is our last opportunity for public comment on any item that you feel to comment on. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? Madam, please come up to the podium, state your name and your local location you live. You will have 3 minutes, and remember, keep this on policy, not on personalities.
My name is June Pemberton. I lived here in Seward. And I just want to say that I think you need to fund education at the CAP. You look around and you see people here, you see people in all the communities that you come from. And a lot of those people are people that have come back, that were educated here, went out, came back, and they're running businesses, they have homes, they vote for you. And the people that are coming up, they're going to be voters as well. So if you want to keep the people here, you need to make sure that education is priority. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on any matter? Vice President, what were you going to tell me?
I'm just going to tell you that there are people standing in line in the back waiting to speak. Maybe we should go there. No?
Please come to the podium, state your name, where you live, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Micah Van Buskirk. I live in Seward, and I've lived here for almost 30 years. I have 2 children that have been through the Seward schools. One graduated last year and another is graduating this year. I'm here to talk about education and a couple other things if I have time. When my son started kindergarten, I joined everything because I wanted to try to improve education in Seward and opportunities for our kids because it was limited at that time, 15 years ago. I joined everything, PTA, site council, music association, arts council. I wanted to be involved. It's gotten worse, and much to all of our dismay. We no longer have music classes. We have a very limited art class that sometimes happens. Theater is done by volunteer recently, and our kids, we have 1 teacher at our high school for math, science, history, and language arts. 1 person has to take care of 176 kids in those 1 subjects. That's not okay. We also have very limited electives for our students. They have to go use distance education. Over 80% of our students take 1 to 2 distance ed classes a year because we don't have the teachers in our community to be able to teach all the core curriculum that is required to graduate. I'm sure you've seen the spreadsheet that the district's been working with of all the things that we have to maybe cut depending on how the state funds us. The 1,000, which is looking more and more limited or maybe not going to happen, is where I was really excited that maybe we wouldn't have to cut those things. Those things include our elementary school counselors, our Quest program, an increase of loss of teachers for our community, athletics. We just saw what athletics does for our community. We can't lose that. Those coaches' stipends and travel funds are slated to be lost if we have to cut that extra money. Even a 0.5 teacher reduction at our schools means a loss of entire programs at our schools. So it seems like a PTR increase of 1. How could that really hurt our high school? That means half of a teacher or a whole teacher. And that means the loss of huge loss of programs in our schools. Please fund education to the CAP this year. An additional $5 million reduction to our school budget because this budget that they've been working with assumes that you guys are going to fund to the CAP. Would alleviate a considerable amount of uncertainty. Borough revenues and sales tax and property taxes are increasing. We have the money to fund to the CAP this year. We don't have to do it every year. We don't have to set a precedent. I totally agree that we don't want, that the state needs to do their job, but we can step back and fund our schools and take away some of that uncertainty. And I encourage you guys to do that. Oh my gosh, really?
You're 3 minutes up. Could you conclude?
No, but I'll try. Can I come up again as a different hat, a non-parent hat?
You may not.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I'll send you an email.
That would be perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, I'll finish an email. Please support our students. I know we have the money to do it in the borough this year. And I think we should. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak? Please come to the podium, state your name and your location you live for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hey, Sarah Spanos, City Limits. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming over here, and this is kind of grueling, and I was just in the back waiting to give my testimony. So thank you for everything you guys do. I'm here to talk about education and funding to the cap. I have 2 sons that have graduated from Seward High, so I really don't have a dog in this hunt, but when retaining professionals in Seward and trying to get young people to come to Seward, education is crucial. And I think as Christy and I don't know your name in the front row, but you were elegant, very elegant about what you said. I mean, we need to really be thinking about our kids and offering the best education that we can. I also want to speak to the pool. I know the pool is always on the chopping block, and you know, Lydia Jacoby, she was our golden girl that won the Olympics, and both of my sons swam with her. And my oldest, he just graduated from a university in Michigan. He was summa cum laude, student athlete, D2 swimmer, captain, and now he's home and he's volunteering with the Tsunami Swim Club until he goes to PT school in August. And for him to come home and tell me, this little guy, he's doing great in the breaststroke, Mom, I really think he's got potential. It's just heart-wrenching to think that if the pool was, sorry, I'm getting super nervous. If the pool was closed, that's a huge opportunity for our kids. It doesn't take long to drive through this town and see that we really don't have a lot of opportunities. And the pool is used for the maritime program. It's used for swimming lessons with the Tsunami Club. It's just critical. And I just really hope that you guys can look at funding to the cap. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Please come to the podium, state your name and your location of residence, and you will have 3 minutes.
Good evening, and my name is Delaney Lenardi. I live in Seward City Limits, and I'm a current 5th grader at Seward Elementary. I'm here to support funding to the cap. At my school, we have a program called Quest for gifted and talented kids. I'm in the program along with 2 of my 5th grade peers, 2 4th graders, and 2 3rd graders. I think this is an important class for the people already in it and the people who will be joining us because we need it. Carrie Russell is a teacher of this class and one of my favorite teachers. We attend Quest on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I personally think she is an amazing teacher. On Tuesdays, she assigns us work such as pop culture games or fun would you rathers or challenging riddles. On Thursdays, she would switch it up a bit and let us choose a project to do. I'm a big fan of art, and every Thursday I would look forward to Quest because in class I could potentially end up doing extra work that my teacher gathered up for me and my friends at the last minute. Since I'm a 5th grader, I'll be going into 6th grade and moving up to middle school. If we don't have Quest up there, kids like me would finish our work, and I'm sure our teachers already have enough work to do, along with getting us extra work to do later on. If we are not funded to the cap, Quest will most likely be one of the many things cut. So students like me will no longer get a chance to express our creativity or have opportunities for enrichment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, and I would say you've got high potential for being the assembly president in a couple of years. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Please state your name, your location of residence, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Bob Barnwell. I'm live in Seward, and that is a hard act to follow. I am a retired teacher from the Kenai Peninsula Borough from Seward, and I taught for 30 years, and I raised 3 children that went to school here and all went to college, graduated from college. I also want to say thank you for all your work, you guys. I know it's really tough work, and just listen to this dialogue today. I know you guys are really think hard about what the money part of this is a big deal. But I want to back up a little bit. In '99, I moved to Seward from Alaska, and I was pink slipped in 2001 and moved to Venezuela as a teacher with 3 children in a house here. My wife and I moved to Venezuela, which we all probably know a little bit about it. In a private school with very high-end, very wealthy students. And I watched students in the public schools in that country flail and flounder. The country collapsed, and I'm convinced the country collapsed because they let go of public education, and they're still struggling to this day, obviously. I watch what we're doing in this country now, and I just, it drives me crazy that we don't understand the importance of public education. I do see your dilemma on you want the state to do their due diligence and fund education. But I believe that we have to fund the camp and send a message. I grew up in Alaska in the 60s. I had homemade lasagna. I had excellent, at the schools, I had excellent teachers, and I became a teacher in large part because I had that quality education. That was in a time before oil. We've gone through the oil boom, and we're post-oil boom, and I get it, we're broke. We are one of the richest countries, if not the richest country in the world. I believe we can afford to fund public schools. It's how democracy thrives. It is the only way. I refuse to give in to the governor's transactional approach that we have to do homeschooling and we have to have charter schools. I think the public schools in these small towns are what keeps this town together. And I fundamentally believe we have to send that message to the state. So thank you for your work. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Please come to the podium, state your name, your location of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes.
He's a little bit taller than me. Becky Dunn, Inside the City. And I just wanted to say, when I walked through the school, there is less people than there were when I was in school. We need to, and one way to help get the numbers down is to is to make it more affordable to live here for families. And that proposition or resolution to bring down to the cap of the sales, not sales tax, but the borough tax property tax was a pretty good start. My property has doubled, not the value of the house, but just the property. The house has gone up too, but more than double in 3 years. Same with another property I own. Same with another one where I'm trying to run a business. I haven't made any improvements. There's no reason for that. Doubling in over 3 years. So thank you, Kelly, for bringing this up and to the mayor. And it doesn't only affect young families, it affects older families too. When you buy a house, you think that's going to be your house payment, but included in the house payment, and this catches young families by surprise, is your property tax. And when your value of your house goes up, the insurance says it's worth more. Your insurance is going up. My payment's gone up over $400, along with my electric, everything else. I also own a retail store. Nothing in that store has doubled in 3 years. So I would really like to see them bring this back on the table and work out some of the quirks, and maybe not 5, but the increases really hinder a family starting out here or buying a larger house that may have extra rooms or property or kids. And the exemption is not going up, though I think it's 50,000 for but senior is not 350,000 in the city. So cities do their own thing. Seward is lower than that. I'm not sure how much, but it's lower than that. So I'm hoping that this is brought back up and the city of Seward follows suit on that, because my fear would be that if it does, then it would be much more cheaper to live outside the borough, in the borough too. And I'm not an invasive species of fish. I've lived here since the 1st grade. I understand your point though, but anyway, yeah. So it is just harder for people to live and thank you.
Excellent timing, and thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Please come to the podium, state your name, who your mother is.
My name is Grace Williams. I live in Seward. I am here to speak to Fund to the Cap. I am a graduate of Seward High. I have a kid who is a junior and then one that graduated a few years ago. There is only one scenario in the school budget that will not cut coaches' stipends. It's not a lot of money. It hasn't been raised in 30 years, but their idea is that we would all volunteer. And that's borough-wide. That's not Seward. Like every school would lose their coach. And I think there's a liability if you don't have a contracted coach. And the school's already told us that we can't hire a volunteer to be an art teacher unless a teacher is willing to sit with them and be that school borough's representative. So now you're asking the 4 teachers we have at the high school to go and sit with the 11 different teams that we have at our school. And you saw those kids today. That's the only thing a lot of them have. It's the only social interaction. It's not on a phone. They have to talk to each other. We go to Homer. That is a 12-hour day minimum. And we're all together on the bus. We're all having interactions. We're all cheering for each other. And we're still in the same borough. But it's so funding to the cap, if you look, it's about a 5,000 difference between if they give us like 6 and whatever and 1,000. But if we don't get 1,000, they're cutting all coach stipends and ADs. They've told our AD that his job is gone. So then the volunteer coaches have to arrange for the refs and the buses. They've cut all the transportation for all the schools, no matter what. Which I'm also the school booster president. So we've been working on that for years on how to change that. And we bought the school some buses. And that's how we get a lot of our smaller teams around. It's a lot more affordable. But every year we're up here asking for more money. And it's a lot harder to get more teachers because we need 25 more kids. But 112 kids are signed up to play sports at our school, at least one. We only have 150. So it's a large, and we just need to be funded to the cap. So thank you all. I know you support our kids. I'm just asking that the money also support them. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Madam Clerk, do you have anyone online who would like to speak?
No, sir. Excuse me. I do see a hand. Zen Kelly, please.
Mr. Kelly, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Assembly President, members of the Assembly, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the time tonight to be able to come in and testify. I don't need to add anything to the prior public testimony or what the mayor said about our schools and the quality of education that we provide on the peninsula. I definitely want to continue to offer that. I will provide an update to the Assembly that our Finance Committee is going to meet on April 22nd. And then we will have a special meeting on the board from the Board of Education to approve our preliminary draft budget. And that, again, I can't stress how much it is a draft, but it's something that we need to move forward at this time where we are not sure of the different funding scenarios coming forward. And we will be passing that off to you by the May 1st date, if not just a few days before. So that's the only update I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, School Board President Kelly. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else?
No, sir. I do not see anyone else.
Thank you. Well, I think that moves us on to Assembly closing comments. And so let's go to Mr. Dunn first.
Oh, thanks, President Ribbons, and thanks, everybody. I know it's been a lot of details we've discussed, and I appreciate everybody who sat through all that, all of the folks in the audience there. I really want to congratulate all of the athletes who got commending resolutions tonight. And, we realize that, they're incredible young people, but it's so important that they've got support from not only the teachers and the coaches, but the community and the assembly and everybody who makes this work. Our sales taxes, our property taxes, it helps support the systems. It's been really, really disturbing for me to watch the erosion of our funding for our schools. The flat funding has resulted in all kinds of cuts over the years, and it's yes, the state has a huge role and they've failed. However, when I was on the assembly previously and on my term now, I want to make education a priority. So I thank everybody who has spoken about the importance of education. The personal stories are really important, and that we're doing this together, and that this is a group effort. And I appreciate everybody who spoke, and that especially the idea that we are using borough tax money to invest in our children. And it's one of the best investments we can make. So thank you all. I apologize for not being there in person, but I'm glad that I could participate remotely, and hope everybody has a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Assemblymember Dunn. Assemblymember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. To begin with, I would like to give my appreciation to the city of Seward. It's a beautiful place. Mayor McClure and I have a wonderful history going back to serving on the Planning Commission together and then on the Assembly together. And after my tonight stand on property taxes, she might want to disown me, but I'm not going to disown her. We're friends. And I would like to, I guess another thing I want to mention to everybody is I've had the opportunity of surveying with my brother in Seward for the last couple of weeks. And I was moseying through the woods as surveyors are wont to do. And there was a brass cap monument I found that was set in 1911. And so for history, that goes back a stretch. And if you can try to imagine Seward in 1911 for just a moment, I think it would be quite the adventuresome memory journey to have. I certainly appreciate the the students and the excellence we saw here tonight in athletics and in academics. One group of students that won a championship had a 4.0 grade point average, and another one had a 3.9 something grade point average, and that just melts my heart. I really, really like that. And so I congratulate Seward on doing a great job with your school. Cindy, great job. Cindy's been substitute teaching, and her daughter works here. And that's, like I say, I just warmed my heart an awful lot. I would like to note that Chaplain Aliotto, when he gave his prayer tonight, he prayed that we would have kindness and courage. And I want to stress to my fellow assembly members that while my position might be different than yours, and also I want to stress this to the mayor, I certainly doesn't change my kindness or my love for each of you. And I simply am going to have the courage to do what I think is right. And I hope that you will return the kindness to me, even if I differ with you on opinions on some things. And with that, I would like to also, by way of this being a public meeting, and our next meeting will begin to work on the school budget. And I would like to let everybody know that I intend to try to fund to the cap. I'm going to make that announcement so that I'm not ambushing any of my fellow assembly members or the mayor. So be looking for me to be bringing forth arguments to fund to the cap, because that's what I think needs to be done. And it's not something that I want to argue about or something tonight, but I just want to let everybody know that that's my position. And with that, gosh, thanks a lot, Seward. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you. And the Assemblymember Johnson Northern Pike metaphor, I'm sure, will live on for many years to come. Assemblymember Eklund.
Thank you, President Ribbons. Thank you, Assembly members, for coming all the way to Seward. I keep hearing that the state needs to step up and do their job when it comes to education funding. Well, last year, the legislature passed a $680 increase to the BSA. That was a good job, but the governor vetoed it. And we lost the override by 1 vote. This year, the legislature has passed a bill adding $1,000 to the BSA. The governor has stated he's going to veto it. We don't know if there's enough for an override. So I think we need to get on the governor. And if anybody has any pull with them, let's give it a go. Let's write our letters and our emails to the governor. Let's start aiming at him, because the legislature is, maybe it's been some close votes and maybe we don't think there'll be an override, but I think we need to shoot some emails out there to Governor Dunleavy. And I really appreciate all the emails I've been getting. I've been trying to respond to all of them. And I will be voting, as Mr. Johnson, to fund to the CAP, because I think we need to send a message that we believe in our students, whether or not the governor does. But we believe in education, and we believe in quality, and we believe in improving, expanding, and that by cutting back, that's not going to happen. So we're going to work on that. I have a couple other quick things. Just came to my mind tonight, maybe we need to work on borough-wide EMS and stop just trying to cut here and there. And we can't, government shouldn't compete with private enterprise. If we put all the money in one pot and spread it out where it's needed, maybe it won't be a big burden on the little communities like Cooper Landing. So with that, I will just wish everyone a happy Easter. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Eklund, and you are indeed fortunate to represent such an engaged community. Assemblymember Morton.
I want to say thank you to all the students that showed up. It's such a joy to see the student athletes. And then I wanted to thank you for testifying, to Amy for your input, and to the two, the Otto and Sony, I think Somi, Otto and Somi, for their presentation tonight. I really enjoy that aspect of being on the assembly, is getting to hear from the students in our community. And it's nice to be over here in Seward. So thank you.
Thank you. Assemblymember Cox.
Thanks. And I also just kind of wanted to echo that. It's nice to be in Seward, nice to see this many people. Believe it or not, we don't always have very many people in the chambers, so it's nice to have people coming in. The other thing is, when we had a break, I spoke to Miss England, and I thanked her then, but I want to thank her now publicly for stepping up for the Planning Commission. That's super cool, and it's a needed position, so thank you very much. Also, some of you may have seen me looking at my phone. I've been looking at trying to get scores for the soccer game. The score I know of right now, and this is at what, 8-16, Kenai 1, Sohai 0 for the girls soccer team. Is that what the score was? Because she didn't send me another one. That's what I kept looking for. So I'm riding home with James, so this is maybe not going to be a fun ride home. But on the bright side, my daughter also does soccer, but she also does track. And I just have to state it. I know she's not listening, but she has a personal record today for the mile of 5:50, which is wonderful for her because she has never gotten under 6 before, and she just beat it by 10 seconds. So for me, that's pretty cool. The last thing I wanted to say is I feel very blessed that in this district, we get Good Friday off. That is something that is important to my family. And then I also just wanted to wish everyone a happy Easter.
Assemblymember Tunseth.
Thank you, President Ribbons. First of all, thanks to the city of Seward and the library for hosting us, gracious hosts. We really appreciate it and appreciate all the community members that have came out today as well. I wanted to thank Mr. Chapman and Mr. Bracken for their presentations today as well on the service areas, explaining the budgets. That really helped. And then, of course, I'll just echo, seeing all the kids that were here today and Ms. Eklund for sponsoring all those amendments to recognize those kids for those achievements and coaches was really cool. So that was fun to be a part of, fun to sit here, and also echo what Mr. Johnson said about, not only the athletic achievements, but the academic achievements were outstanding as well. So a lot of kids to be proud of here in Seward. Just a couple updates that I'd like to give here. The first is on the school board meetings that I attend. So their last meeting was on the 7th. You heard Mr. Kelly testify a little bit. I just would like, I'm going to hold off on some of my comments until, we have this robust discussion at the assembly meeting. But I would like to point people to just a couple things. The finance committee meeting that they had that started at 11 o'clock in the morning on the 7th, and their work sessions, which were at 4 p.m. on the 7th, were fantastic. If there's elements that you could go back and listen to glean information, those would be the ones to listen to. That's also where included is the budget document that you've heard people reference and talk about, that included the scenarios of a $350 increase, a $680 increase, and a $1,000 increase, and what would be cut. You can find those documents there as well. I know they're working really hard as well. Everybody is trying to figure this out. You hear school board members like Ms. Stothett say, this is the hardest thing that she's ever done in her life. And, when it comes time to have these funding discussions, I may be feeling very much the same way. It's very difficult. But we can get there, I believe, and we're going to get there together. I know there's a lot of people working on this really hard. But I would like to point you to just that 11 o'clock finance committee meeting, and the 4 p.m. Work sessions were really good. And if there was something that, you could go back and listen to really get some information about, where they're at and why they're at, the decisions they're at for which positions get cut and that type of thing. Those were great meetings. Their regular meeting was started at 6 p.m. and then it went almost until 11 o'clock at night, with lots of public testimony as well. Moving on, I attended a Charisma board meeting, which is the Kenai River Special Management Area. That was on the 10th. Not a lot to report there. Been some discussion about permits within state parks, permit stipulations, and the Charisma board wanting to be able to weigh in on those more. And so there was discussion about writing a letter to parks requesting more involvement from the Charisma board, but nothing more to update there. I just want to recognize that, we're in Seward, but I'm going to do my best to recognize the Kenai boy when I can. But recently elected into the Alaska Sports High School Hall of Fame was AJ Hull. It's a congrats to AJ and his family. That's a great thing for him. Sunday on April 27th at 2 p.m. at the Jim Balamisi Special Olympics Training Center, there'll be a ceremony recognizing the Hall of Fame inductees. And so if anybody wanted to attend, I think I'm going to try to attend, but congrats to AJ. Also heard just recently from the city of Kenai an update that they're going to begin on the bluff stabilization project here pretty soon, within the next month. And so rocks will start to be showing up, delivered on barge, and starting to be placed in Kenai to help stabilize the bluff. As many of you probably know, Kenai's got an ongoing erosion issue for a long time, and it's been something that a lot of property owners and landowners have struggled with. And so that's a big milestone to start seeing some of those things actually get put in place. So that'll be interesting to see that start to develop. Just lastly, I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware and invite everybody. There's another resource being built in Kenai. It's a Triumvirate Theater. It's a fantastic group down there, and they've got funding to build their own building. And on Friday, April 18th at 4 p.m., they're having a community-wide sort of grand opening thing. And so I just wanted to invite people to that as well. another exciting thing that's happening in Kenai. But I think I'll keep it there. I would just close in saying, Mr. Johnson and all the assembly members, Mr. Johnson, you've always been extremely gracious. Whether or not we disagree on an issue will, never change the way I feel about you. I think you're great, but I appreciate you saying that. And with that, I'll yield over back to the president. Thank you.
Assemblymember Baisden.
Take a breath. Thanks, everybody. It's always great to come over here. We don't come here enough. You're always welcoming when we come over. It's great to see the young people in the audience, especially whenever you have a fifth grader go to the podium and is the most dynamic speaker that we hear all night. You can't beat that. We don't get enough of that. Great job. Thank you.
Vice President Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Seward, for having us here. Mayor McClure, great to see you as always. She spent an awful lot of years serving this community, so it's always great to see her. And I'm really grateful when we get to come to Seward. I kind of feel a kinship being on the other side of the peninsula. So thank you for your hospitality. Thanks to the staff for all the work you do. These folks put so much work ahead of time and after time putting this together so it all works. So thank you all for your time and your energy today. Just real quick for the listening public, there was a bond proposition last year for South Peninsula Hospital, and it didn't pass. But what people were telling us is we want to be more involved in the process. We want to be able to give more input. So that South Peninsula Hospital Operating Board is doing a phone survey, and they started it last week or last Friday. It'll run for 2 weeks. They're getting the numbers from the PFD color log, so they make sure there are people in the service area. After they've got a good sampling, then they will convert it to being online. So for everyone that is in that service area, just be watching for that. And they want people to know that they are responding to their requests to be more involved in the process. And that's all I have. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Vice President. Mayor Machicki.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Seward. Great meeting. Mr. Johnson, you're one of the nicest human beings I've ever met. That's never a problem. We're going to disagree sometimes, and we're going to be tied at the hip on the next issue. So that's not a thing for me. I always know that you vote with your heart, and that's commendable. School funding. While the state has remained flat, we've increased our funding by 30%. In the last 4 years, while the state has remained flat, we've increased our funding by 15%. In the last 3 years, we've increased our funding by 10%. We are, when you compare us to similarly situated boroughs that are at the 78%, we're 20% above them. We support our kids. If we fund to the cap, my budget's not going to have a fund to the cap. Part of it's strategic. My discussions with the school board is let's force that discussion in Juneau. The folks that are constitutionally required to fund education. And then let's see what happens at the end, and we'll sit back down and have a chat and see where your needs are, and we'll meet them. That was my promise last year. They did fine. I don't know that they're going to do fine this year. But if we do fund to the cap and the state doesn't rise to the occasion, all the cuts you talked about tonight that you think will be cured by funding to the cap, none of them will be cured. None of them. Every cut you talked about and then some will occur. So please focus on your legislators. You have 2 local legislators that are likely a no. You have 2 local legislators that are likely a yes. I think the governor can be swayed. I heard what you said about not wanting to negotiate on those other issues. Without negotiation, we will not get $1,000. That's just kind of how it works when you've got someone who's kind of veto proof, right? So get them all in a room, let them work it out. We need an adequate amount of funding in which to survive. But I just want you to know that this Kenai Peninsula Borough and me personally are absolutely dedicated to adequate funding for our schools. Just being a little bit more strategic telegraphing the fact that we're going to continue to shift the impact on local taxpayers and let the state off the hook, to me, is not strategic. Doesn't mean the funding won't be there afterward, but they've got to rise to the occasion or this is going to be ugly. So I just want to make sure folks understand where I stand personally. Always been a champion, always will be a champion for education. I still have 2 left in the district, very proud. My last graduate was last year, she graduated with a 4.2, at Gonzaga at a very reduced cost because of her performance. That all came from the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District, and I'm very proud of her, very proud of her education. So please don't consider a strategic approach to be a slight on our support for the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. And please consider that we can always get together after the legislature's done, even if the budget is passed, on meeting the needs of our district. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. My wife and I have been visiting Seward for many decades, and we really appreciate the invitation for us to come down here. In fact, we elected to take our truck and camper down here, and we spent last night, and we're going to spend tonight, which means I've got about 30 or 40 minutes worth of things to say because I'm not driving anywhere, right? Just kidding. Our next assembly meeting will be May 6, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the regular assembly meeting in the Betty J. Glick Assembly Chambers. Remote participation is available through Zoom. And with that, we're adjourned.